Yo, what's up, my comic book aficionados? Today we're gonna be dropping an overview on Spawn Book 2. This is the Origins collection. Here is the full wraparound cover. We got Spawn and we got Redeemer. So Redeemer is basically anti-Spawn, and this is gonna be his first appearance. Will be included in this book. Here we get what issues are included, which is 13 through 25. We get the spine here, Image Volume 2. It's in green. And here's a little quick synopsis. So here is the binding. As you see, there's some gutter there. You typically would want this to lay as flat so that you don't get this space here. The less space you get here, that means the better it is, right? Now you get less space here by having this, having an eye right here, having this open. But this one seems to be glued to the spine. So this is the original printing. The new reprints, they get an eye right here and their sewn binding. I'm not sure if this is sewn binding, but it definitely is glued. So therefore you get a little bit more gutter loss. Here is the inner cover. So it's a lime green. As always, it matches the spine. You see here the spine on volume number and on the image logo is a lime green. When you open up the book, it shows you what it collects. Issues 13 through 25, you get the wraparound cover again. And always in the first page, you kind of get like a two-page spread like this. They zoom in on one of the panels. So here you get an idea of the gutter loss. See, you get some of it there. You can see how the line isn't straight. So yeah, and the reprints, it's a lot better. But this isn't, it's not the end of the world. It's still very well built. Here you get, the creators that were included in the book and so forth. So as you can tell, Spawn now has his face sewn. So before you start volume 2, you would read Batman and Spawn, the crossover. There's 2 books. You would read those 2 first, and then you would hop on issue 13 so you can know kind of what happened to him. Here we get the cover to issue 13. We got Chapo right there. He's a young blood, so this is kind of sort of like a crossover. In the beginning, you have Badrock. He's again another young blood character, and he's playing some video games, doing some type of test. It's kind of meaningless why they're here. It's just to show you that they exist in the same universe. Here's more Youngblood characters. So they end up getting into it with Spawn, and Spawn is kind of telling them, I'm only after Chapo. This is Chapo. She's like, I'm not after the rest of the Youngbloods. Here, 6-panel layout. Looks kind of creative here with big letters on the bottom. So here he's talking to them. These are all Youngbloods, and he's only after Chapo. Here's the big action scene that everybody wants to see, a Youngblood versus like Spawn, right? Because they were all new characters in this new Image universe. So you can see Spawn's clearly getting the better of him here as well. I like the panel layouts here. It gives it like a horror feel, more like supernatural. And then here they give a lot of dark shadows to Chapo itself, making him look like the villain. It almost comes off a little bit like Jay Lee type of art. So it explains how Spawn gave Chapo this face, this look, like where you could see his skull, because he cut out his skin. So it was very brutal, very gruesome stuff right there. That's why all the panels here are like, bloody. So yeah, very creative here. I think this is the last, and this book is the last issues you're going to get of Todd Mcfarlane. Volume 3, we will jump on to Greg Capullo. Here again, another awesome splash page. I really like what Mcfarlane does with the capes. He used to do this with Batman as well. Like, look at how huge it is, and it's doing all kinds of crazy shit. Like, he gets real creative with what the capes are doing all the time. So that's very reminiscent of Batman, and also standing on the buildings on the ledge, kind of scoping out the scene. And the whole city here looks pretty cool. So we have Violator here talking about how he has dealt with Spawns since back in the medieval times, right? He's talking about a story when he fought this Spawn called Medieval Spawn. So of course, it was a different person wielding the Spawn powers. So there's always over the centuries a new Spawn all the time, right? And he's telling the story. It's kind of like a fairy tale. He's telling the story from his point of view, right? How he was the hero, Spawn was the villain. But obviously Spawn was the hero, and he fought Violator because he stole this princess, and Spawn was actually her like bodyguard. Here they're having the epic showdown. And here an awesome panel where the horse just kicks the crap out of a Violator. That's very cool right there as well. The art is real cool right here. I like what he did here, like in this panel, for example. How Violator's jaw opens real big and it's shooting a fire. But here you get all this dialogue almost like a novel, right? It's like the narration. Here you see the princess in shock. Look at her eyes. Issue 15, November of 93, The Myths. Here you get part of the cover. As always, when you change the page, you get the full cover. So this is an awesome cover with medieval Spawn, and you get Violator right here. So you kind of know how this story ended up, but there's a twist to it. As medieval Spawn is fighting Violator, he loses his armor because he scorches him with that fire he shot out, right? So now you see how his body is underneath. It's all burned and scorched. He ends up taking out the Violator right here. And you see the princess, her eyes are just still in shock, watching the whole fight. But it's also in shock just to see how her bodyguard looked under the armor. She had never seen him before. So once Spawn, you see him here, he chops off a Violator's head. This is an old story from back in the days that they're retelling. How they've been going, Violators and Spawns have been at war forever. Here he saves the princess, but when he saves her, you see her running away from him. So she's really like scared of him. He's just as much of a monster as Violator is. And you see him here because he really cared for the princess, has been her bodyguard forever. And you see him kind of like emotional here that, oh, she sees me as a monster, just how she sees Violator. So, you know, he didn't want things to end up like that, obviously. And he knows he can never fit in with just regular humans. Once you come back from the dead, you're not going to fit into a regular society. Over the years, they have changed the story. It became myth. And this is how they tell the stories now, that it was a dragon and not actually a Violator demon. Here's another great cover by, a great splash page by Todd Mcfarlane. We got Spawn right here whipping the cape around. It's not really a splash page because we do get another panel here. And you see how the gutters affects the reading a little bit. You kind of got to like move it over here and like, you know, try to read what's up in there. So here, this is a really good picture. We got Spawn and he's having like memories and flashbacks. Like here's his widow wife because he's dead now. And here's the guy he carved his skin off, Chapo. Then here's Malebolgia, the devil he made a deal with. What was he thinking? So his life is all kinds of crazy, right? And he's slowly chipping away at like learning new things because he's just playing catch up. He still has to. It's like he started off with insomnia and he's still trying to learn what's going on. And us as the reader, it was never really explained to us either. So we're still trying to figure out like everything, right? Like, all right, so we kind of getting an idea of how he became Spawn, but we're not even familiar with all his powers yet either. So that gets kind of we're slowly learning as we go. And we're already like on issue 14 and we still haven't really fully figured everything out. But now we know Spawn is more capable than we thought. So here's the agency here. This is the Heavens Agency. Sexy secretary with the glasses and all that, you know, typical trope. So now she's talking to the people in space or in heaven, right? Like gods. And they're like, well, okay, we need to send somebody that's just as powerful as him. Here's Spawn's villain. Kind of like his villain. As we slowly learn more, he might have had something to do with Al Simmons, aka Spawn, with his death. So he's kind of like Kingpin. You see him fighting ninjas to train and all that. Much like in Marvel, Kingpin does that. Even has that little gut going. So Heaven sees him as like, okay, he's kind of like Spawn's villain. So let's give him these superpowers. And he's like, what the hell's going on? They give him all these superpowers. And it's kind of, there was no lead up to it. We just randomly give him these powers. And now he's this guy, right? So we're like, what the fuck? Now he's anti-Spawn, meaning Redeemer. But there was no story behind it. We just made him a new villain. Now we're getting into issue 17, January of 1994. So now we're in part 2 of the story arc. And I believe this is actually a 3-part story arc. Here's the cover. It looks awesome. This is Greg Capullo. It's almost kind of a take on one of the Spider-Man covers of back in the days. Here we got Malebolgia with his long hair looking real heavy metal. Woo woo. And it looks almost like Evil Ernie, who was a character in the 90s. So Malebolgia's looking at the world and he's happy he's laughing. He's happy with the way things are panning out. It looks like Spawn's going to come back to him pretty soon because he's going to need a lot of his superpowers to fight what's coming, right? And if the quicker he uses those powers, the quicker he comes back to hell and can do what he promised to do for Malebolgia. Here's Redeemer looking all badass. Nice full page splash here. And I believe this issue is, I think it's Greg Capullo on this particular issue. Now here we see Wanda and her husband. Wanda, we know, is Spawn's widow. She's talking to him how, I just feel like my husband didn't die at work in the war or working for the CIA. She feels he was set up somehow. And she's in his ear enough where he starts questioning it as well. And since he has a high-ranking position in the CIA, he's like, I'll look into files and stuff like that and kind of see what happened, right? And she's really backing her play because, you know, he is in love with her and that was his friend. So he does want to get to the bottom of it. He starts thinking, was he maybe set up? Why? Why did he have a falling out with the agency, right? So here is just a big fight scene with Redeemer. Not a lot of stories Spawn-wise. The story's definitely more with Wanda and Fitzgerald. Here he says, there's nowhere to run from. Death. So he's bringing death to Spawn, right? And look at the cool panel here. Nice action on this one. You see Spawn here. It looks like this guy's just as powerful and he actually has a match right here for him, right? So he knows in order to beat this guy, I'm going to have to use my superpowers. Again, much like the Violator scene, he's shooting fire. Boom, he blasts a hole through Spawn. So Spawn's going to have to use his powers to heal and he's going to have to use more powers to actually beat this guy. He didn't want to use them because it drains his energy. But in the position he's in, he's going to have to use them. So we get to part 3. Once Spawn is done with the fight with Anti-Spawn, aka Redeemer, you see the house, silent night and everything. And Wanda's looking out to the window. She's like, I can't help but feel like Al Simmons, her aka Spawn, her ex-husband. I can't help but feel like he's looking over me somehow. Like she could feel his presence. And we see Spawn right here. He is looking through the window and she's looking out the window. So it's a nice moment here. Nice character moment. Hits you in the feels. You kind of feel for Spawn and you almost kind of feel for her too, even though she's not in a bad position right now. She's happily remarried. This used to be one of Spawn's friends back when he was alive. He's been following him long enough to know he had nothing to do with him being set up. If anything, he sees that he never talks bad about him or never gets jealous when she constantly brings him up how she misses him. He never talks bad about him. And he sees that he's like looking through files at work and stuff, trying to get to the bottom of this murder, right? And he's like, yeah, through him, he'll find out what happened. So he's like counting on him to find out why was he set up. And she's really kind of thankful as well because she's like, okay, like he values my opinion and he's looking into it. And this type of stuff can get him fired or he could get put in a situation much like Al Simmons did where maybe the agency's like, we don't like what you're doing, and they could have him set up as well. So he's kind of putting his life in danger to get to the bottom of this for her, but also for his ex-friend that passed away, which is Spawn. Now this again gets kind of off the rails and very wacky and slapsticky. Now it turns out who's looking at Spawn and at Earth? These creatures, these aliens from another planet. So they came in very out of nowhere. Like, okay, like what do they have to do with the story? No setup. They just appear and they've been looking at Earth the whole time. So it turns out they're kind of like following this guy who is the great Houdini. He has came back to life. He was known for being an escape artist, cheating death all the time. So it turns out he's still alive because he knows how to cheat death, right? And he becomes friends with Spawn because he's like, hey, how you cheat death, you know? So they're trading secrets, right? And Spawn's like, holy shit, like, you know, so the great Houdini, he exists. And they kind of have a team up here. Again, very out of nowhere with the Houdini and the aliens. It's kind of just a little story arc here that doesn't necessarily connect with the rest of the Spawn universe. Here we have Wanda and everybody asleep. He gets a call. So now he's being threatened and blackmailed. He gets a call like, you've been digging through our files and stuff. We got to have a talk with you. So, yeah, he's going to be in some trouble. And I like this page too. Here with Capullo and Mcfarlane. So, yeah, we get the second part of the story arc with the Houdini. We get into May of 94, issue 21. Now, before you read this issue, you will read Batman and Spawn crossover. They had two crossovers, two single issues, which I have, and I'll cover after I cover this video. I'm going to read those next. which I should have read them before I read issue 21. But I wasn't aware at the time until I read it that, oh, wait, I have to go back and read some stuff that's not in here. Obviously, it can't be added here because of rights issues, right? Batman is included. So Batman gave Spawn this scar. It's a wicked scar all across his face. And we just get to this issue and we're like, what the hell? How do you get the scar? We don't know how he got it, but it says here, read Batman and Spawn issues. So you would read those before issue 21. It's 2 crossovers. They have a nice little hardcover that just came out not too long ago that includes those issues. They don't really tie into the story much other than for you to know how he got that wicked scar. Get back to Sam and Twitch. So this is Sam. And look, boom. Slugging somebody. Slugging this perp. So, you know, your basic abusive cop that wants to get answers by any means. So even the department is like, hey, we don't like the way you're doing things. You bring heat on the department. But also because the CIA wants to, one of the leaders of the CIA, one of the guys which became Redeemer, he doesn't want them finding out more information because they're hot on the trail. And Sam and Twitch are working even against the department itself that's trying to stop them from figuring things out. So they're doing things outside the book, right? Speeding on this perp, he's trying to get answers. And, you know, he's non-conventional way, but he gets information. So now he's looking for Spawn because he says Spawn is somehow involved in all this and they're not too familiar with Spawn. They know very little about him. He's a mysterious character at the moment. So they're not exactly buddies with Spawn quite yet. Here is a badass picture of Spawn saying, "You're damn right I am." And he's pissed off right here. He rips the mask off. We see the scars for the, kind of like for the first time, right? Of what Batman did to him. So yeah, Spawn is looking for these mob figures because they're after his widow wife's husband. Because he's like knowing too much about the CIA. And the guy that's on top of the CIA hired them to kind of take care of him so that the CIA doesn't have to do it, or that guy doesn't have to get his hands dirty, right? And the mob, well, they already have a bad rep anyways. Spawn follows one of the main boss guys, accountant. It's kind of like his lawyer and accountant, handles his money, his cases. So he obviously knows a lot about their bit, what they do, right? And he's letting them know, you better tell me everything you know. And he gets a lot of information through him because he knows a lot about the mob, because he defends them in courts and covers up a lot of their mess legally, right? So yeah, here's some more action scenes. He's taking care of these other goons. Here is Mcfarlane mimicking some of his heroes again. The guy that did Cerebrus, he constantly did pages like this where it's just one picture and just a lot of writing, almost like a prose novel. I don't like this in comic books. I've said it before. But I do like this in novels where you at least have one picture and then you read, right? But in comic books, I kind of want a lot of pictures. So this would be cool, like a novel like this, as opposed to novels that don't have no pictures at all. So yeah, it looks very menacing. And now they're after this guy, the husband of Spawn's widow. They gave him this message, this dead rat. So it's a very clear sign. They're telling him he's dead. Now some two-page spread again. You do get a little bit of a gutter loss there. It's not too bad though. I really enjoyed this page. So this is a big two-page spread because we got this character back, Overkill. He came out in the first volume. Spawn took care of him, but now he's back. He's like the mob's enforcer. So since he's a cyborg, half human, so a lot of these metal parts that they destroy, they could kind of rebuild him, right? And now when he's rebuilt, they did something to him where he thinks this is Spawn. And now he's like, oh, I gotta get my revenge on you. And he's like, oh, you're not as tough as last time. So he's slapping him around. And Spawn has to go save him. But Sam and Twitch stop Spawn. And Spawn is telling him, look, they're gonna kill one of these good guys. He's a good cop. Come help me. Then you can interrogate me. And here's where they start slowly building trust. They still don't really trust each other. But Spawn leaves anyways. So they leave with him. And they're like, let's go see if there's anything to what he's saying. Spawn shows up and saves him. Saves out Fitzgerald. And here's Overkill. So another big battle with Overkill and Spawn. But this time, Sam and Twitch are there. And they kind of see, hey, this guy's saving people. So he's a good guy. He's not bad. So they kind of start befriending Spawn. So now he has some help from the police department, right? Where they're kind of like a little bit on his side. Much like Batman, right? Where he has Commissioner Gordon to kind of help him out a little bit. And now they're questioning Wanda. Hey, they're looking for your husband, the CIA. Do you know anything about this? And she's overwhelmed by all the media. And she knows her husband's in a bad spot if the CIA's after him. And she kind of knows that the mob is after him now too. So he's making enemies left and right. And she knows he made these enemies by digging into the murder of her ex-husband. So she knows she's kind of partly guilty for this. Spawn saved Wanda's new husband. Issue ends. I'm not gonna get into everything. I don't want to completely spoil everything for you, right? So you can read the book yourself. We get to the last issue, 25, towards the end of 94 already. So here, this is another cool cover, and this would be pretty much the end of Mcfarlane. Another great cover, like I said. We constantly get this with the news. I usually skip these parts because it just references what we're already reading in the book, right? And they're recapping it for the audience. So here we see Wanda again, and she's talking to her husband. You almost got killed. What happened? And he's like, that Spawn character saved me. He's not a bad guy, and he knew who I am. I don't know how, and I don't know why he saved me. So she's like, oh, and they're, talking everything out. And we get introduced to another character, Tremor. Now, this guy's interesting because at first he wants Spawn. So he wants Spawn, and you're thinking he's a villain, and he leads this mob. He's like, yeah, I'm the leader of this other group, this gang, and I'm calling out Spawn. So it started off kind of lame. You're like, what a lame way to bring in a new character, and he doesn't look like the leader of a gang. He should have some type of supernatural storyline, right? Here he's waiting for Spawn. Spawn shows up, and he's like, oh, I want to talk to you. And Spawn's like, I don't want to fight. I want to get to the bottom of this. What is it you want? So when they speak, crazy twist. I did not know that about this character. He's actually not a villain. He's actually a good guy. He's like, look, I just want you to help me get information on the mob. He goes, because they're my enemies. I used to work for the mob, and they turned me into this thing with their experiments. And he's like, I want to get them back now that I have all these superpowers, and I can never live a normal life again, right? I can't go back to my wife and kids. So at least with these powers, I can use them to get revenge on all these mob figures, right? And Spawn is like, whoa, he's like, this guy is a lot like me. He's kind of in the same situation. So that's all we get about Tremor, but you see like two sides of the same coin. He's telling the story how they're doing the experiments on him here, and he turned into this mutant. Later on, obviously, they got Overkill, a cyborg instead of a mutant. So he ended up being kind of an interesting character, and I hope we see more of him later, and hopefully maybe he starts teaming up with Spawn, helping him, so we could have another good guy on Spawn's team, because now it looks like this guy may help him, and we got Sam and Twitch slowly coming to his side as well. Extras, again, some of the covers in black and white, like usual. Right, here's some more. Here's another quote from Todd Mcfarlane. This was written back in the letters pages of issue 23, back in like 94 or whatever. He says, the people at Image were all easy targets for the comic company to say they're not selling books because we're ruining them or whatever. We got to remember at this time, Image was like a top selling company, and they were just jealous. DC and Marvel almost went out of business because of comics weren't doing so well, and Marvel actually wanted help from Image, from Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, from all them. Like, hey, can you guys teach us what it is you guys are doing? One thing you got to remember is those guys that started Image, it was basically all the Marvel guys. So Image was basically Marvel, right? And these guys were all younger guys. So they're closer to the age of the demographic that you're selling these comics to. So they know what it is they want, and they're more current and more hip. They know like, oh, they're into this and that because they're close to the same age. And Marvel and them were all the older cats. So they don't know what the younger generation wanted. They're still doing things the old school way. Here's a nice two-page spread, like I said, black and white. Splash page right here. And we're getting these. And here, look at what you see this. When you get all this on the top, it's all the like, it's very like a rough draft of how when the original page looked. Obviously reprinted or scanned on glossy paper. It's a great page right there too. Two-page spread by Greg Capullo, 1995. It says, darkness is my home now. So yeah, he's has a little bit. You can see they borrow a little from Batman, a little from Venom, a little here and there. Another great 2-page spread in black and white. So yeah, guys, hopefully you liked this video. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Really helps out the channel. You already know what's up. Help support your boy. This is the cover to the trade paperback. Oh no, I think this is the cover to the, trade paperback. And this is the reprinting of that trade paperback. Here's Spawn's costumes, completely different. Look at this. He has like this glove thing that he doesn't have in the original costume. I'm not a big fan of the newer costumes they did later. I like the original one. See where the gloves like that. Cover to the 2 volumes that were covered in this book 2. 2 volumes covered were volume 3 and volume 4. Alright guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully this helps you make up your mind if this is a book you want to pick up or if it's a series you want to bother reading. Other than that, I'd just like to thank you guys for checking out the video, and I'll check you guys out next time.